Hey, in this video today, I just want to go over some poll results that I got from using my Instagram to ask people some particular questions about climbing. And let's just hop straight into it, all right? So the first question I asked is, what's the highest indoor grade you climb? If you don't know this, when it comes to climbing, indoor grades are typically a lot easier than outdoor grades. The main reason is because the companies or the people want you to have a sense of progression when you first start climbing. That's going to build adherence, makes you like climbing a lot more. And honestly, great marketing strategy. It definitely made me want to climb a lot more, and definitely helps other people, newer climbers. Newer climbers will typically judge their skill based off of the color, and they'll count every single grade or the day they went up the rankings. It's a very satisfying feeling, like playing a RPG game. Of course, some people say grades don't matter. I simply say that bullshit. But let's just look at the data. So out of 8,586 votes, the number one place in terms of people where they climb the hardest is V4 to V5. Now in the climbing world, if you don't know this, V4 to V5 is where most people or casual climbers will tend to plateau. And of course, the vast marketing or majority of people that climb are indeed casuals. They are not super serious. They climb maybe 2-3 times a week and try to climb whenever they feel like it, and they don't particularly train, hangboard, or etc. etc. So climbing at V4 to V5 totally makes sense, especially when it comes to V4 V5 verticals or V4 V5 slab. I know for me, the first day I did a white in my gym, which is a V8 plus, it was slabs. That was me. I was doing white slabs for a long time until I was finally strong enough and good enough to do slab on vert and then finally overhang, which is vastly harder. But in the climbing gym environment, slabs pretty simple. Not to say they're easy, but it takes the least amount of strength. It takes a lot of grit. But yes, that's it. And then the rest of the data points kind of shows exactly what you were expected to show. After that, I asked the question, what is the highest outdoor grade you climb? Just to get a fun little comparison. Now, the thing that makes sense to me 100% is V0 to V3. When you first enter outdoor climbing, and let's say you climb V6 indoors, you may think you're going to crush V6 outdoors, maybe V5. The answer is nah. You might be lucky to get a V3, maybe a V2, depending on the climb. Outdoor climbing is a lot more abrasive, a lot harder on your skin, and typically speaking, it's a lot more finger intensive and static. Not to mention there's also the fear factor of falling on rocks. Not to mention there's also the barrier entry of knowing where to go, knowing what to climb, having the equipment, which costs kind of a lot of money, aka the pads, and being able to go there and climb the climb. Now, normally speaking, the best way to go about this is by just asking someone or a friend to take you with the, honestly, best method. Now, the one thing that I did look at and notice was kind of weird is V7 to V8 and V9 plus. There's more V9 plus than there are V7 to V8. And after thinking about this for a little bit, it makes sense because in the grading scale, we go from V0 to V17. And on Instagram, they only give you 4 options. So what that means is V9 plus is V9 to V17. There's 9 levels that anyone could choose from if you're in that margin. Whereas V7 to V8, there's only 2 choices. So even though if we plan this out by every single V grades, the higher we get, the less climbers will exist. But because I compiled 9 of them into V9, then it gets all of the options of V9 plus without, having to be separated. Whereas V7 to V8 is only 2 options. So that makes sense to me in that way. And V4, V6 is, of course, pretty normal. Next one. What is the smallest edge size you can hold? So out of 3,000 votes, the majority winner here is these people believe they can hold 6 millimeters or less. Now, when I put out this poll, I had it in my head that in order for this to count is you have to hold a 6 millimeter on a hangboard with both your feet off the ground for at least 5 seconds. I don't know if I specified that or not. I totally forgot. Forgive me. But I don't believe for one moment that this data is true. If I go to any gym, besides maybe Okikubo or Japanese gyms, if I go to any American gyms, I'm pretty sure 1/3 of the population there is not going to be able to hold 6 millimeters for like 5 seconds off the hangboard. I don't know why. That just doesn't seem to be accurate inside my head. I could be wrong. You guys let me know if you guys think it's more common or not. But that was pretty interesting. The rest of the numbers look pretty okay. Not too bad. Next one. What do you think your climbing needs the most to improve? So I asked this fun question, right? And now because I'm a guy who climbs and I'm pretty flexible. I think maybe there's a slight bias in my audience, and just through subliminal messaging of me stretching on my program, platform, that a lot of people started saying flexibility. But it's also true that I know the vast majority of climbers I know are not flexible by any metric of wow, not at all. So I do think people say flexibility because it's just a good thing to say. It's like saying, hey, do you want to be rich? Yes. Or in this case, hey, do you want to be more flexible? Oh yeah, I need it. But then I also notice a great lack of people who actually focus on flexibility. Instead, what I think the real answer here is the thing that you could use the most to improve is indeed technique. Follow very closely by strong fingers. But of course, as we can see here, technique is second place with 19% or 1,187 votes. And it's kind of odd, which that tells me that a lot of people think they're good at climbing. But if we go back and look at this, the vast majority of people climb V4 to V5. So that lets us know that no, you need to be better at climbing. You suck. Okay. Anyways, besides that, you gotta be more technical, but flexibility will help. As a guy that's super flexible, I've noticed when my flexibility has helped me versus someone who's not as flexible as me. But it's not gonna jump you from V7 to V9 by any means. It might help you on one move, but it's not gonna be the maker or breaker. I will say strong fingers can make or break the climb though. Like honestly, if it's just a ladder, left, right, with not much technique, and then it just comes to pure how hard can you crimp, then there we go, hangboarding is very useful. And on the higher end of climbers, say V9 plus climbers, everyone has pretty strong fingers relative to their body weight, at least that I've noticed. So yes, and pulling strength, like pull-up strength, that came in dead last because of course it did. It does surprise me that I would say the people who say they need pulling strength are the people that can't climb harder than V3 yet or V2, because at those stages, especially indoor, everything you're holding is a jug. So the type of strength you need isn't really crimping strength at the moment. Is can you pull yourself towards the wall and move? Of course, you could say that's a technique thing too. But again, pulling strength is more important at V0 to V2, because you guys see all those like calisthenics guys that have shit climbing technique, but are really strong at pulling, and then they could just campus themselves up the jugs like pull-up bars. There you go, pulling strength, very useful. Will outclimb a new climber with no pulling strength in that sense. So we're gonna look at what is the one area of flexibility you would like the most help on to help you improve your climbing, is what I said. So out of 4,000 votes, we have hips as number one. Not even close to nothing else, just resounding hips. The ability to open your legs wide is very useful on the wall. It's especially useful when you want to bring your hips close to the wall, not necessarily go to different footholds. So that is indeed something that I see all the time that people struggle with. So that makes sense to me. However, though, kind of like the other poll I did, though I hear this complaint and problem all the time and see it, no one actually does anything about it. They just say it's a problem and then continue on with life. It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, I should do it. Yeah, I should do it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's one of those things where like, you know, but you don't care enough to do. But I'm glad everybody is aware of it. And then second came wrists. Now, wrist problems in the climbing community is pretty common because we're always holding slopers. Mostly slopers, to be honest. Slopers or pressing movements like mantles will hurt your wrists. And this typically only happens in climbing because in most other sports, you're not exactly like putting a lot of pressure on your wrists. And if you are, you're already conditioning them. Like if you're a calisthenics athlete, you can plank and you already have nice conditioned wrists. But if you're just like a climbing guy, we don't do a lot of pressing or pushing movements at all. So when we do, that initial pressure on our wrists, which are not conditioned to have that amount of load on them, kind of hurts a lot. And again, for holding those slopers, it could literally like pop your wrist or pop the tendon over your wrist bones, which does not exactly feel good. Luckily for me, because I breakdance while growing up, my wrists are pretty strong and I maintain them through stretching and exercises. So wrist coming in second, not that big of a surprise. The rest of those, who cares? Next. What do you think is the perfect height for climbing? This is pretty funny. This is a fun one. Out of 10,000 votes, the best height for climbing was 5'5" to 5'9". I would like to say that the best climbers in the world are about 5'7". I did some math. I looked at all the top IFSC competitors for like this season, and then I just took men bouldering and men lead, and for bouldering is 5'7". For lead, there's a big discrepancy of height because there's like some outliers, but it's a little bit higher simply due to those outliers. But the general consensus here is if you are 5'7" with like a +2, +3, +4 ape index, that is like the ideal male climbing body type. If you're a female, just downgrade it by a couple inches because it's a little bit shorter. But I did find that it was pretty interesting that 14% of people thought that the ideal height for climbing is 5 foot to 5'5". I don't know why they thought that. I'm just slightly astonished. Not to say that you can't be good at climbing at that height, but it is to say that in basketball, if you're shorter than 6'2", you're probably not going to play because reach is very important. Just like how in climbing, if you're like just 4 foot nothing, not even 4'11", but like 4 foot nothing, you're not going to become the best climber in the world because holds are far and wide apart, and when you literally can't touch it, you literally just can't touch it. Not to say you can't be good at climbing if you're short. Let's go Aimori. This is simply to say reach is pretty important, but it's not everything, but it is indeed important. And then at 6'2" plus, we have 12% of the votes, 1,141 people that say that that's the perfect height for climbing. I think these people are the ones that are either they see tall climbers just reach for the hold, skipping holds, and they think, yes, of course that's the perfect height for climbing. Why wouldn't it be? It's so easy for them. But when it comes to climbing, climbing is not a height-based activity like how basketball is. Not to say basketball is just purely height, but come on now, you gotta be tall. It's simple. I think those people don't understand that climbing is a weight to strength ratio sport. So when you're 6'2", your frame is a lot heavier and a lot bigger, but your fingers aren't necessarily that much stronger because you're bigger, like the world's strongest man type of ordeal. No, your fingers are more or less around the same strength, and your leverages are a little bit worse for your fingers because they're longer. So being 6'2" plus is not that great of an advantage, especially you weigh like 180 pounds being 6'2" plus. Now, of course, there are some climbers out there that are indeed 6'2" plus, weigh 180 pounds, like Emil. I don't think he's 180 though, my bad. Sorry, guy. But anyways, but those climbers aren't at the top echelon of climbing. Again, like I said, if you look at all the top men competitors in the world, they're around 5'5" to 5'9". Around 5'7" foot. And that also goes kind of true for outdoor climbing as well. While being tall is nice, it's typically around the 5'7" range, give or take. I think 5'9" is probably excellent for climbing, or like a +3. That'd be really nice. All right, now that we're done with height, how long do you normally climb for? Out of 10,000 votes, with the number one amount of climbing time is 1 to 2 hours. Now, when it comes to climbing for 1 to 2 hours, obviously, you're not climbing for that entire time. Normally, you're socializing for around half of that time. So for 1 hour, you're talking, just shooting the shit, just sitting on the mats, which is really fun. The thing that actually kind of astonished me a little bit isn't that 17% people climb for 3+ hours. That makes sense to me. I'm one of those people, but I don't do that all the time. It's that 12% people only climb for 30 to 60 minutes, which is kind of a weird amount of time to climb. It's not a lot, because for me, it takes me like maybe 30 minutes of climbing and falling a little bit to like fully get my engine like, ooh, okay, and now I'm nice and ready on a typical day. On some other days, it takes me a little bit faster, but normally on like a normal day, it takes me about 30 minutes. And that means I only have 30 minutes of climbing. But then again, I'm just so used to climbing all the time that I look at 30 to 60 minutes and I just think, oh yes, that's a nice warm up, talk around, mess around time. For me, I typically climb 2 to 3 hours. So that's my happy zone, 2 to 3 hours of climbing, a little bit of training as well. And periodically I'll go over 3+ hours. But there are some people that just climb 3+ hours all the time, 1,824 of them, which is pretty good. Again, the climbing gym is not just purely climbing, it's a lot of socializing, and I do a lot of socializing in the climbing gym. That's typically where I get all my socializing hours. And I think if you climb for 3+ hours, you definitely have a lot of friends at the climbing gym, especially you do it regularly. But yeah, that's just a fun little statistic right there. And then, do you like it when people beta spray you? There's this thing that I have observed about climbers. Climbers are nice people. Typically speaking, nice, non-confrontational type of people. It's not like in basketball where shit talking is kind of part of the activity. And climbing is more like encouraging. Hey man, I don't care, you're better than me. If you are, that's great. If you're not, cool. But then it becomes kind of weird when someone tries to help you by giving you advice on how to do the climb without you asking. This is weird because I come from a pick shit up, put it back down bodybuilding type of background, where if you see someone with horrendous form on the deadlift, you wouldn't simply say, hold up now, dog. Let them figure it out. They got this. You would kind of just go up to them and be like, hey man, you're gonna hurt yourself doing it that way. What you should do is, and then you go in like that. So in my head, any and every time I see someone climbing and their beta is horrible, I just want to immediately say, what are you doing, man? That's not how you do it. Left foot there. Use the foothold. Why aren't your arms straight? I immediately want to help them climb better. Not in a sense to say, hey, I'm better than you, but in the sense of, I would like to see you do better because you can do better. And that brings me a certain form of enjoyment in that factor, which I've done time after time, countless times in revisions over and over again. It brings me a little bit of pleasure to see someone utilize their bodies properly on the climb. On the climb, I know they can do, but perhaps they don't think they can do due to some other factor besides beta and or technique, just purely a physical thing from their point of view. And then I like to switch it up a little bit, let them know, hey, you can do it. Honestly, it was just a technical execution type of ordeal. However, there's a slight 26% of people that simply say, no, I like to figure out myself, which I can't understand. And those people I would categorize like this. When I watch a movie that I'm really into, I don't want to be spoiled on the ending. And I'm like, yeah, that's understandable, and I respect that. But also, I respect that. There's no but also. Silly chain. And then there's 53% of it that's like, oh, I'm cool. I don't really care anyways. Anyways, the vast majority of people, which is in this case 74% of people, kind of really don't care and kind of appreciate it somewhat. And then, but I will say, here's the thing. The people that appreciate it, they don't super appreciate it, they appreciate it. But the people that don't like it, oh man, if you don't know this, they really, really don't like it. It feels like if you tell them how to do the climb, they kind of just don't want to do the climb anymore. And I look at those people and I'm like, you know what, bro? I understand. Don't get me wrong. I hate being spoiled too, but at the end of the day, he or she was just trying to do a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's a public space. He can say what he wants. It's like those people that get mad when the gym is loud and they need quiet to focus. I'm like, you're at a public place. Get over yourself. Blah, blah, blah. But hey, to each their own, right? To each their own. I hope you can tell I feel some type of way about this. Anyways, next. Last one. Oh, come on. Hey, why doesn't this have a title? Anyways, this question is, do you think it's rude when you brush a hold and someone comes and climbs it before you without asking? Now, out of 9,992 votes, yes. A lot of people will understand that it is bad climbing etiquette or bad manners to climb a hold, to climb a route that someone else has brushed while asking them. Now, this is because, and I'm part of this category, you brush that hold specifically for you to climb. And if someone comes and does it before you, that kind of sucks. It's like, now it's not the end of the world, but the best way I can kind of put it is this way. Let's say you go to the buffet and you grab a plate of food and you make your plate, right? And then you put your plate down for a second, and then some guy comes and he grabs your plate of food and walks off. Now it's a buffet. You could repeat the entire steps all over again. It's honestly not even that big of a deal. However, it was for you. You did it for you. But now it's not. Right? So that totally sucks. We have 10% that don't care. No, we have 10% that doesn't think it's rude. Now those people, their argument is, it's a public place, bro. You could brush it again. And get over it. And I'm like, I can understand that. This is just like an unspoken rule. Honestly, you're not hurting no one, but you are kind of pissing off some people in a sense. And then we have some that don't care. And then I added a fun category that says, I am that guy. I just thought that was a fun category to add. Anyways, these are like maybe like 8, 10, 12 questions that I asked off of my social media. I hope you garnered some form of enlightenment and hopefully found it entertaining. And yeah, that was it.